Bam, bam, bam. Hello, everybody. Welcome to Shadow at Night for Thursday, September the 4th, 2025. On the show tonight, child safety advocate Raelyn Fox joins the show. This is going to be a good one. She and I were having a conversation, brief conversation before the show began tonight. We're going to talk about, aside from the obvious fact that some pretty awful books are in our public school systems, what's the fallout from this? And why are there so many people who still don't know about it? Is it because they don't want to know about it, or because they just don't follow the news? And if that's the case, then why don't they? With everything in the world that's going on right now, I mean, it's pretty obvious, at least to me, and I can only speak for myself, that there's something kind of crooked in the world right now. It's off kilter. Some people would say it's clown world, upside down world, and I would agree with that. But even if you are the most staunch of normies who only cares about sports on weekends, going to work, doing whatever, watching your Netflix shows, even if you're one of those people, you still have to sense that there is something askew, don't you? Raelyn Fox joins the show in just a couple of minutes. Hello to Kathy watching in Bothwell, Ontario. Linda is watching in Trenton tonight on Facebook. Hello, Patricia in Grimsby. Edie is watching in Winnipeg. Hello, Wanda watching in Sudbury. Heather is watching on YouTube tonight from Edmonton. Vicky is in Nova Scotia. Hello, Lucette. Debbie, Janet. Michael is watching in Brampton tonight. Edna in Victoria. Hello, Sherry watching in Winnipeg. Sophia is watching. Hello, I always enjoy what you share here on Facebook, but we're not friends. Oh, I see. I think that might be a troll. So it's one of them trolls. So I'll just block the troll and move on. Jeannie is watching tonight from chilly Stonewall, Manitoba. Kev is watching tonight from Canada, Nano Silver. Jen, Patty in Haddishville. Dawson, hello, in Maple Ridge, British Columbia. Tamara is watching tonight. Brenda in Quebec. Roseanne in southern Manitoba. Over on Rumble, we have Dog Lips, Arnie, Esky Dogs, Pie Master 15, World Peace, Shauna Club, Louis Devlucht, Porter Boy, Nutsy. All the regulars are over on Rumble, no matter what platform you are watching on tonight. Don't forget to like and share. Please, guys, get this out to as many people as you possibly can. We get to meet her finally tonight. We've seen a lot of her stuff in the past couple of years. Those books aren't in my kids' school, parts 1 through 11, which are available on social media right now. But we get to finally sit down and have a chat with Raelyn Fox. And we'll do that when we come back from this message from our sponsor, Canada Nano Silver.
Silver is amazing. It has several natural health benefits, and it's been used for hundreds of years for health and healing. That's the main reason they made silverware from silver. But seriously, this nano silver from Silverceuticals is the best and safest silver you can find. There are hundreds of studies and reports on it. I've read some of the studies myself, and it's mind-blowing. One of the things that sets Silverceuticals apart is that it washes out of your body in 24 hours. No silver buildup and no turning blue. And it won't even harm the good bacteria your body needs. It's so effective they can use very small concentrations of silver, like 10 and 32 parts per million, and still outperform other silvers that have up to 3,000 parts per million. It's safer and more effective at the same time. It is an incredibly small particle that is small enough to work through your body, but big enough not to fall out of suspension. They infuse it into almost all of their products. It works in facial serums, toothpaste, gels, and even gummies that work to help your immune system.
Hello, Raelyn. Welcome to the show. Thanks for coming on. You guys don't forget to welcome Raelyn in the comments. She's a little bit shy and maybe a little bit nervous being on the show tonight.
Good evening, Shadow. How are you?
Very good, thanks. She was telling me a story about how, what was it? You had to do a presentation when you were back in university and you almost passed out?
Yeah, I was in college. It was a communication course, and I had to do a presentation that was part of it, right? Public speaking. And yeah, I turned all shades of weird colors, and the instructor, the professor, they're like, "Are you okay?" Once I all finished up, she let me finish. So that was nice. And she's like, "I didn't know if I should get you a bucket or a pillow or like catch you." And I was like, I felt okay. I mean, I felt hot and flush, but
A little bit nervous.
getting easier.
Well, I remember first meeting you in person, and that you say that was last year, or maybe 2 years ago at the Million Person March.
Yeah, I believe it was last year. It feels like longer than that, though.
It does. It feels like, to me, I for some reason have this recollection of one of those big meetings we had at the legislature with a couple thousand people there. You were talking to the crowd, and then you just vanished. I remember meeting you for like 2 seconds, and you were gone. And I thought,
I got the heck out of there. I saw some of the other side kind of tampering with equipment, and I was like, I don't want to be here for the rest of this. Get out.
Yeah, the Antifas were there, that's for sure. They didn't really have, I don't know that Winnipeg has got a real bad Antifa. I mean, we've got them. They're just not as bad as we see in some other cities. So, Raelyn, before we even start tonight, I have to tell you that the stuff you've been doing, those books aren't in my kid's school, 11 parts now. Fantastic for raising awareness about what's going on in public schools, public libraries. And I'll tell you, whenever I play one of your episodes on the show, people, they'll actually check out for the 3 or 4 minutes that it's on. They'll leave or they'll complain, "Oh, I don't want to see this." And what I say to them is simply, well, if you don't want to see it, do you think maybe 7 and 8-year-old kids in school, when they have nowhere else to go, should be seeing that stuff? And of course they quickly smarten up. Why did you start doing this? Had you had enough? I mean, like we were talking about before we started the show tonight, we're just regular people.
Yep, I'm just nobody. I'm just a small town mom of 4 kids who I came across these books. I felt like it was my responsibility to speak up about them. If nobody else knew about them, how are they going to find out? Because I found out, I didn't go searching, right? I found them and I went, well, this is weird. And then the more I dug, I was like, I really don't like this. This doesn't sit right. Why is this? It's not like it was a secret or anything. It wasn't like, I don't feel like they actively tried to hide it, right? But it didn't look like it. I don't know how to say it,
how did you
Shadow.
first see it? Like, was it when one of your kids brought the book home, or were you just happen to be in the school? How did this happen?
No, I found them on my daughter's dresser. So she was acting very secretive about what she was reading, which wasn't normal. And so I was like, all right, what's happening here? So I investigated, as any good parent I think would, wanting to see what is causing this shift in their child's behavior. And that's when I came across them. So they kind of fell in my lap. We'll just leave it at that. And yeah, I decided that.
The reason I ask you that is because these books, at least from what I've seen, sometimes are very cleverly disguised, right? So if your daughter is being secretive about some of the stuff she may or may not have, and it's our duty to go ahead and ask the questions and, see why they're behaving that way. We don't necessarily have to go and invade their private spaces, their drawers and their backpacks and all of that, or their phones or whatever they happen to keep their private stuff on. But, if they leave us no choice, then we'll do that. But when you first saw these books, did they look suspicious to you? Like, are the covers that way? Or did you have to actually open this up and go through page by page?
They say you shouldn't judge a book by its cover. It's very accurate. These books looked innocent. I'm going to be honest, though. The books that I found in my daughter's room were not to the extreme that I've now found. They were very, let's say, mild in comparison. So I'm very, very thankful for that. So yeah, once I dug into things, I found some worse ones, and I went, I don't know if I love that my daughter, who loves reading, I don't know if I want her just exploring this library, right? So
How old was she when she had these books?
so it was 2 years ago. She'll be turning 14 soon, so she was just about 12.
So she's 12. She's at that age. She's kind of curious about this and that, obviously. I mean, that's puberty age, right? Or getting close to it. So when you started...
it's a hard topic.
It is a hard topic, and I'm just trying to make sure I word this properly. When you first started digging, like, what was the conversation you had with her? I mean, I don't want to throw anything out there that you don't want to make public, but like, how do you talk to your kids about this stuff? I mean, this is something that I think is kind of a lost art amongst parents these days.
Well, like I said, the books that I found in my daughter's room were pretty mild. So I didn't have to have a very in-depth conversation. Although if she had found some of the other ones that I've come across since in other schools, I don't even know how I would go about the conversation, to be honest, because some of it is so nasty.
What books did you find that she had?
Oh gosh.
You don't remember?
I think one was called Maximum Ride. I think it was a graphic novel. I know it sounds worse than it really was, I think, but it just had some sexual suggestive stuff. It wasn't over the top. Yeah, I can't remember the other ones. I'd have to dig back in my notes because I know I wrote it down.
Okay, so Maximum Ride, whatever, and it's mild. Yeah. So what made you then decide, I wonder if there's anything worse? Or you could have just dismissed that and thought, well, I mean, there couldn't be anything worse than this in the school library. It's the school library, right?
Yeah. Honestly, Shadow, it was mostly accident. I saw these books on her dresser or whatever, and then I think everybody had seen like the videos coming out of the States, right, where the parents are at the school board meetings and they're reading this stuff off and everybody's in shock, right? And there's calls of decorum. Oh, don't use that language here, right? So I think everyone's seen those. So when I saw those ones, I was like, let's dig into the rest of these books here. So I found all these lists, right, of the high offenders that were being read from in the US. And I cross-referenced that with what's available in our library. So there was a couple that were on my daughter's dresser. I remember that were on those lists. So again, the mild end of things, but still.
But you went deeper. You went much deeper. And I mean, some of the content that you've put into those videos that you make, again, if you guys haven't seen her stuff, you can just go find her, just like it's spelled at the bottom of the screen there. On all of the social medias, it's called, this series is called Those Books Aren't in My Kid's School, 11 parts. Obviously, you didn't start doing the videos immediately, Raelyn, but what did you do? I mean, you must have gone to the principal there. You must have like, wait a minute, hold on. This is, you can't have this book in the kid's school, right?
Yeah, you just follow the protocols that they have put out. Like people ask me, well, how do I know what to do? Where do I go? Like if I find these things, what do I do? Well, you just follow the processes and procedures that the school has put out. You know, walking into a board meeting and blowing up is not going to probably serve you well in the long run. I mean, it might make you feel better. And I know that when I watch those videos, it sure is satisfying to watch them kind of.
No, I know, but I'm asking you personally, like when you first saw this, you were concerned enough to talk to somebody about it, obviously, because you've gotten to the point where you're doing videos online. So you go to the school, you talk to the principal. What did the principal say to you?
Well, I asked for a tour of the library. We went and did that because I wanted to know where the books were kept, right? So that's where it started. I wanted to know where they were because I wanted to see what my daughter had access to. And that is when I discovered the other stuff. right? The other books. And it's always centered around the protection of children, Shadow. So I'm learning more and more as I go that it's not common knowledge, right? How these books are harmful to a child, how sexually explicit material is harmful to a child. And I know that it's often justified as educational, right? And again, I'm starting to learn that it isn't as common knowledge as I think, that these are tactics used by people who want to gain access to a child for, let's say, impure things. I'd love to share some of the risks and harms, because even, like I said, it's not as common knowledge as people, or as I'd like to think. But that's kind of why I went after it, Shadow, is because I did know that this stuff was harmful. And I think that is what the biggest holdback from people is just not knowing the potential harms of it, right?
Or maybe not wanting to know. Maybe it's like one of those situations where they just kind of walk past and go, la, 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 right? Like, it's not going to affect me. It's not going to affect my kid. It's not going to affect me. It's not going to affect my kid, and just keep walking. That's what we've seen too much of about pretty much everything for the past 5 or 6 years or so. So, like if you have a list of harms that this can do to
I made
kids,
a list.
Yeah, let's hear it.
I made a list. It's long.
We got time. Don't worry about it. We can cover all of it.
Oh, perfect. It ranges from psychological to actual physiological impacts as well. So, and some of this I knew prior, some of this I learned as I went, and it was like, holy crap, this is worse than I thought it was. So the first one I have is mental health impacts. So we see, kids that are exposed to sexually explicit material earlier on, they are more likely to suffer from anxiety and depression, similar to like trauma symptoms. Victims of sexual abuse show similar trauma as to those. Hold on, I'm not reading my notes properly, Shadow. Sorry.
Take your time.
I'm getting ahead of myself. So premature sexualization. I think a lot of people who advocate for sexual health education, which we have to remember this is separate from what's being brought in now, which is comprehensive sexuality education. It's very different. It's not reproduction. We're focusing on all the other stuff.
Well,
right?
What we're seeing is a lot of, from some of the stuff that you've shared in your series, there's pedophilia content, right? There's homosexual activity, and they use the street jargon or whatever the cool kids are saying about sex these days, and it's filthy. Yep. This is stuff that you would read in the Penthouse forums in the 1970s, right?
Yep.
This is pornographic stuff. But worse still, they're bringing adults and children into it, and that is against the law. And it's amazing to me that nobody has yet been charged with crimes for willfully putting this stuff in public schools. I'm sorry to interrupt you. Please continue.
No, not at all. The whole education part of it, right? The sex ed. When we get into this comprehensive sexuality education, where we're pushing that, right? We're not just talking about reproduction anymore. We're talking about these some of the time obscene sexual acts. But anyway, so the premature sexualization of children is another thing that we're seeing. So kids might start actually after being exposed to pornography. These kids don't understand what they're seeing, right? They don't understand it. So one of the ways that they use to better understand it is to reenact the behavior. And that part makes my stomach turn, to just think about a child not knowing what they're doing, but doing it. So that's when we see child-on-child sexual abuse starting to happen. And it makes me sick to my stomach. So
we're talking
the
about very young children here too, aren't we? This is not teenagers now.
Well,
not
I hope
necessarily
not,
anyhow.
but yeah, I think, I don't know what the actual statistic is around that, what the age range is. I'm sure I could find it. I've read them in a million studies. I don't have enough desk space for all of those studies tonight. But there is a statistic here. Teens heavily exposed to sexual media are about twice as likely to be sexually active by 16. So they're exposed to the sexual material, and then they start acting on it earlier, right? So that's why I always think that people's argument of, oh, if you teach them about that stuff early on, then they'll be prepared for that stuff, right? They're having sex earlier and earlier. We need to prepare them. And here I'm sitting here going, well, maybe they're having sex earlier and earlier because they're being exposed to sexual content earlier. So the horse before the cart, right? Is it the education so that we can make sure, or is it, I'm losing my train of thought here, Shadow, or is it the fact that we're giving them too much information and therefore it's causing the problem that we're trying to now counteract?
Well,
right?
It's obviously a social contagion, right? And
Yeah.
the worst thing is that they're trying to change the parameters of what is societally acceptable and what isn't. And I believe that inside, each one of us knows the difference between right and wrong. It's just a part of who we are. Yeah, there's some learning to it, obviously, but when it comes to sexualization, we know what's right, we know what's wrong, and everybody at their own pace. You can't. I would never trust this ever to a public institution. I mean, this is not for them to be into my kid's private life. You teach them about reading, writing, arithmetic, man. That's it. Stay out of that stuff. If you want to teach them about health and the reproductive organs and all that stuff, then draw a stick man up on the chalkboard. But you don't need to be getting into all of this graphic nonsense, because that's several bridges too far. Anyway, I'm sorry. There are other harms.
I agree. Oh gosh, there's so many. Another one was identity confusion. So basically, it blurs those sexual boundaries, and then your moral or spiritual identity is kind of altered, right? So your family might have really strong values on monogamy, but however, all this porn exposure now has you thinking, oh well, maybe I don't have to be, maybe I don't have to have just one partner anymore. And we know that these organizations that are pushing this, they openly advocate for, alternate relationships. I can't remember exactly how they word it. I was looking at it earlier. It's right on CIRC's website. So that's Planned Parenthood, right? Renamed from Planned Parenthood a number of years ago.
Say that again, please, because there's a lot of people that don't know that. CIRC. Oh,
yes. So CIRC is the Sexuality Education Resource Center here in Manitoba. And they were renamed from Planned Parenthood back in, I think it was 1997 or 8.
Interesting that they're still called Planned Parenthood in the United States. They've lost their funding now, at least a lot of their funding. But why, they have to run around and masquerade under these different names.
Yeah, well, you get a bad rap and then you have to rebrand, right? How else do you keep going? How are people going to trust you?
But I wonder if CIRC goes by a different name in Alberta or in Ontario or British Columbia. That's something that we would have to look into.
I think it does, but I don't know if that for sure.
Okay, you guys watching this right now in all the different provinces, go ahead. There's your homework for tonight. Look for Planned Parenthood. Seriously, look for Planned Parenthood in your area and see what they're called, because this is the same thing as ICLEI, the United Nations local environmental program. ICLEI calls itself all kinds of different things in all kinds of different municipalities all across the country, just so they can't be recognized and found out for what they're doing. And this is the same situation with CIRC or Planned Parenthood in Manitoba. What about,
Yep, absolutely.
Raelyn, you've had conversations, I'm sure, with some school officials about this stuff, and you don't seem the kind to go in yelling and screaming. And you've even said earlier tonight, you said, look, it's not going to do you any good to go in there and holler and scream. It feels good to watch it on videos. Like, I get it.
But if you want people to be receptive, right, you have to stay calm. Because I know when someone comes at me angry, I'm just like, I'm not talking to you.
Right.
I'm done.
So yeah, I'm sure you've had conversations with some of these folks, like, or tried to have rational conversations with them, and so, like, what are you guys doing here exactly? Like, what is the meaning behind this? What's their response?
I haven't really got one. And that's the end of the story. I haven't gotten one. There's been a couple public statements, but it doesn't ever seem to be, they just reaffirm their policy that they already have in place for material selection. And, you know, I go in and I say, well, it's not adequate. And that's the answer I get is, well, we already have a policy. So, yeah, it's frustrating. And that's why I'm doing what I'm doing, Shadow.
What's their policy exactly? Did they, has it changed at all in the last little while? Like, what is their policy?
I'm actually not even sure when it was last updated. But their policy is essentially, these are the education goals that we have, and the selection within the library needs to meet one or a number of these goals. And I can't remember them off the top of my head, but I'm sure inclusivity and diversity and equity are probably in there.
Oh yeah.
I wish I had it in front of me.
Sustainability probably too, somehow. I'm sure this has something to do with climate change.
Absolutely it does, actually. They've
brought pedophilia and climate change together. Now that's remarkable to me. That's got to be some sort of mental gymnastics that I can't even imagine. I'm going to throw this up on the screen here, because you must have been pretty happy when you saw, let me just hit this here. You must have been pretty happy when you saw what was going on in Alberta in the last week or so, even though the left-wing corporate media has been calling it book banning. This is the education minister of Alberta, Dimitrios Nicolaides. He says, after becoming aware of a list of over 200 books that Edmonton public schools intended to remove off their shelves, I'll be revising the order immediately to ensure that our classic literary works remain in school libraries, while books with graphic pornographic images such as those depicted below do not end up in the hands of children. And then we've got to throw this up here, because these books and still are ending up in the hands of children. This document contains graphic content that may be disturbing to viewers and is not appropriate for young viewers. Viewer discretion is advised. So having told you guys that, make sure there's no kids with you in the room right now where you're watching this. Gender queer. Not going to read it. Is that one of the books that you've highlighted?
That is one of them. Yep. That was in, I think, part 11. Yep.
And then there's I can't even believe this.
Look the worst one.
That's amazing to me. Fun home. Now, that to me doesn't sound bad, right?
No, of course it doesn't. And of course, the covers are very.
Okay, there's the illustrations. Kind of hard to see. I'll go ahead. Page 17 says, but would an ideal husband and father have sex with teenage boys? I don't see how that's necessary for children. Page 109, and budding is the only possible word to describe the painful, itchy beginnings of my breasts at 12. It's true I had not wanted to grow breasts, but it never occurred to me that they would hurt. And there's the
this book, actually, I didn't know had pictures. I'd heard the title, but didn't know it had, that one's nasty.
The blankets one or the one above?
Well, actually both. The fun home one and the blankets one. I didn't know they had pictures.
You guys are able to see this watching. I'm sure this is insane.
Yeah.
Flamer.
Yeah, Flamer. That one sounds familiar. I wonder if I've read from that one. I've read from so many, Shadow, that I don't even remember anymore. I think the last time I looked, my count was at like 44 that I've read from in my video series.
Anyway, what we've got in Alberta is an acknowledgement that these books exist. Not only do they exist, but that they are in public schools and libraries. And the reaction from the left-wing corporate media has been predictable. They're calling it a book ban now. And maybe that's why there's no political will across the country to do anything about this. Because the only other option, Raelyn, that we have available would be that these people who are in charge think that this kind of stuff is okay for children.
I know. I would hope that most people, when they see those images, they go, well, wait a minute. Even if they were on the side of supporting, right, and keeping these books in there, I often get the argument, oh, well, it's censorship. And I'm like, no, it's not censorship to protect children from sexually explicit material. We have protections in every other aspect that is harmful to children, like, right, alcohol. We have a drinking limit. We've got tobacco. You can't smoke until a certain age. And why would that be any different with sexually explicit material? So these books, I mean, what you talked about earlier, Shadow, was the content of them and what exactly is in them. So some are sexually explicit, others are straight up pornographic, and some of them actually, I would argue, could potentially meet the definition of child pornography, right? Because they are depictions of sexual acts, either between minors or between minors and adults. And I just don't understand how anyone could think that that's acceptable for kids.
So this is something that Raelyn and I talked about in messaging a couple of days ago, and that there's a certain gaslighting aspect involved here, right? Like if people see this on their own for the very first time, they discover this, like you did. Yep. And then you go, wait a minute, hold on, isn't that pornographic? And then somebody says, no, you're seeing things. This is the way it's been for years.
Yeah,
it's
absolutely.
Fine for kids.
It's like walking in on your significant other and they're having an affair, and you walk in and they go, it's not what it looks like. It's not what it looks like. Oh, it's what it looks like. I know porn when I see it. And I think what people need to know as well is that porn can be written. Okay. There is whole sections on, don't ask me how I know this. There's whole sections on pornography websites for written pornography. So don't tell me it can't be written. It's actually in the criminal code that it can be written. So, and also people say, oh, well, the age of consent is 16 years old. So, why can't they have pornography? Well, my answer to that is the power dynamic that comes into play. So we actually have provisions in our criminal code that state that if there is any sort of power dynamic, so let's say a coach, someone in a position of authority or trust, that effectively makes that age of consent go up to 18. And that is for sexual activity, but it also applies to supplying them with sexual explicit material.
What's interesting, this kind of stuff, like when I was in high school, we had a gym teacher who was fired suddenly, quietly and suddenly. And then later on, the rumor got around the school that he was taking advantage of some of the young students in school. I still can't say whether that's true or not. It was only the rumors that were flying around. But this kind of stuff, this kind of abuse has happened in families for years, and nobody has ever really, nobody wants to talk about that, right? Nobody wants to embarrass themselves publicly. when Weird Uncle Bob was in my bedroom, and then maybe it comes out 10 or 15 years after Weird Uncle Bob died. But this is a situation where we're normalizing that behavior on a community-wide scale. And if you try to bring it up, if you try to talk about it, if you try to say something like you have, then you will become the victim of abuse and derision, and you'll get targeted with lawsuits. I don't want to talk about that. I know that you have been targeted with one of those. We're not going to go into detail about that, but what's the blowback been like for you? Have you received a lot of support? Have there been people in the community who have come after you?
No one has come after me, but the support has actually, Shadow, brought me to tears. Uh-oh. It has brought me to tears. You're gonna make me cry.
It's all right.
On a podcast. I started the Give, Send, Go to help fund that legal fight, and it has grown so quickly, more than I had actually hoped for. So the support is amazing to see, and not only that, there's actually, so whenever I went grocery shopping not that long ago, and a lady out of nowhere, maybe she's watching this, maybe she's not, but she came out of nowhere and she actually scared me, because I was sitting in my car just sending off a text, and I look and this woman is at my window, and I'm like, oh my gosh, do you like me? Do you not like me? It's not unheard of for someone to approach me in public, but it's like, oh gosh, do you like what I do or do you not? But then she held up to my window some money, and I was just like, okay, I feel like this person's probably okay. So I opened my door and I'm like, hi. And she's like, I know who you are, and I want to thank you for what you're doing. And she told me her personal story as to why she feels that it's important that I keep going. And she said, this is all I have in my wallet. She said, but I want you to have it, and I want you to keep going. And so it makes me want to cry. And I cried that day. And I gave her a great big hug. So no, it's been really good.
How can more people, Raelyn, get involved in doing what you do? They don't maybe necessarily have to do the videos that you put together. I know it takes you a lot of time to put those things together. It takes a lot of time to produce something like that. I totally understand it. And maybe some people are a little bit, they're not tech savvy that way, or maybe they're just a little bit shy. But what can they do behind the scenes to help the situation? I mean, clearly people have been working on this in Alberta enough for Danielle Smith and her political party to come out and start doing something about it. And this is only the beginning. I mean, don't think for one second that some of these neo-Marxist, neo-fascist teachers, educators, as they call themselves in the system, are going to follow all of the rules that she lays down. They're going to try and find a way to subvert them somehow. But here in Manitoba and other provinces, the governments won't even admit there's a problem that these books are in the schools. And if they do, what they'll say to you, I think Christine told me this, our friend Christine Ronseray, I think she said, we've been trying to track down the source of these books that have somehow made it into our school divisions in Manitoba, and they keep passing it around. We don't know where it comes from. I think you finally narrowed it down to CIRC, right? Planned Parenthood. They're the ones.
I don't know if they are the ones who are like giving them out or something like that. I don't know that, but I do know what I do know is I wrote it down because I was like, I need to share this. So essentially what happened, and I've been trying to figure out what year this happened so that I can kind of, investigate further, but I keep finding new documents that take it back a little further and a little further. But in or around 2015, so the United Nations adopted the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development. So UNESCO, the UN's education agency, they push countries to embed it into schools, including comprehensive sexuality education. So by 2017, Manitoba aligned, where's my papers? My goodness, because I want to show this. Manitoba aligned its K-12 mission with Education 2030. So since then, outside interest groups like CIRC and CCAN, right? They've been brought in to provide resources because, they're like, we don't want to do all this ourselves. So we'll bring some people in to do it for us. So that's why we see a shift from the traditional health education, the what they actually call shame-based, or I think it was fear-based education, right? Scaring kids out of having sex, to the more pleasure-based, I think is what they call it, justification for the explicit books under diversity and inclusion goals. So for anybody that says that Agenda 2030 is a conspiracy theory, you can show them the Manitoba Proclamation. So you probably can't read it there. But
no, can we find that on? Is that available online, Raelyn?
Oh yes, absolutely. It's kind of hard to find, actually. Like you have to type it in, Proclamation, International Development Week. They change the name of the week all the time, right? They put out these things. But this one from February of 2025. So this is signed by Tracy Schmidt there, our current. So she's actually hasn't been there that long, right? So this is brand new. But it says this year's theme, Go for the Goals, emphasizes Manitoba and Canada's commitments to the Sustainable Development Goals as set out by the United Nations Agenda 2030. So it's true, it's real, and that's why we have these books, right? So it's just under this big umbrella of diversity, equity, and inclusion, and yeah,
it's all
that's why they're there.
Of the agenda. That's absolutely amazing. Like, because we look at it and go, all right, well, they're doing this, they're doing that, they're doing this, and all of these other things are just distractions to keep us occupied from what they're really doing. But right. It's all part of the same thing. And I suppose maybe that is the purpose, to keep right. us, focused on other things. But this is definitely something that we should be paying attention to, because our kids' futures are at risk here. So again, I ask, go ahead.
Go ahead. So right. When you were saying that, they keep trying to pass the buck on who's bringing these books in and why they're there, the buck stop, or the buck passing can stop now, because I also have a letter from the Manitoba Education Minister's office, the Learning and Outcomes branch, that states that it is the responsibility of the division. It falls on them. So a lot of the time I get those, exactly that, is that they're trying to go, oh, well, that's, it's part of the curriculum and you'll have to talk to the education minister's office, and then they bounce you around between a few people and whatever. But it's come back now that no, it's their responsibility. So even though CIRC and CCAN are the ones who are kind of are pushing this diversity, equity, inclusion thing, because it's coming from the UN or UNESCO, the Manitoba Education does not take responsibility for the individual books that are there, right? So we have disclaimers in some of the documents that, if you go on the Manitoba Education website, it's just like this big maze, right? It's all these links, and it's like how I can't even remember how I find everything, right? I just save them on my phone.
Well, you just follow the links and follow the links and follow the links.
I know. And so there was one that I came across. It was their Gay Straight Alliance guide. So they give this big list of books, again, underneath this diversity, equity, inclusion thing, right? It's this sexuality education. So they have this big list of books, none of the ones that I've read from, but they have their own list of books that are all recommended for the Gay Straight Alliance Club. And then they have this disclaimer right in the document, and it says, the list of books that follow may be useful resources. However, they have not been reviewed through a Manitoba Education and Advanced Learning formal resource review process, nor are they endorsed by the department, and they do not carry a Manitoba recommended designation. So while it's undeniable that they opened the door for these books and these resources to be used in schools, they don't take responsibility for them. So that's
like posting a sign that says "swim at your own risk," essentially.
So the responsibility is going to fall on the division ultimately, and yeah.
And then if you go to the division and say, "Hey, what about these books?" They say, "We'll talk to the Minister of Education," and so you do get bounced around quite a bit. And in that way, they never, ever have to admit that these things even exist.
Yeah. So you asked me, Shadow, what can people do to help?
Yes.
Right? What can they do to help? So there's little things you can do. There's bigger things you can do. Believe it or not, I made a list. My husband always tells me, I need a list. So first of all, contact your school principal, right? We need to follow protocol. Go up the chain, right? Contact the school principal, contact the division, contact your board of trustees. I always say that, meeting in person is better than over the phone. And especially if you're meeting a trustee, I think in person is just, private conversations are often more productive. Contact your MP, contact your MLA, the education minister, the media, send it to the media, write an editorial, right? Like, they love hearing from community, right? Those small community papers. What else? We can sign petitions, right? Sign petitions. There's one coming up, I think, or they're trying to get it into the works. But I think actually there was a little bit of a holdup. They were trying to get it approved to be read on the floor of the legislature, but they rejected it and said they needed to change some of the language because they're using words like masturbation and fellatio. So they're being told that they have to reword the petition or else it won't be read on the floor.
We're all grown-ups here. We understand what those words mean. And if kids
are and kids are being exposed to worse, right? In these books, it's the whole purpose of this. So yeah, I can't imagine.
On a research basis, Raelyn, I mean, it's one thing for people to take action and, talk to the local politicians or whoever. But on a research basis, I mean, you've done so much. I'm sure you've got all kinds of things scattered in front of you that we can't see right now. And by the way, guys, I'm going to throw this up on the screen here. This is Raelyn's Give, Send, Go. I've also included it in the comments, and I'll put it in Rumble as well. But it's right now currently in the YouTube comments, the Facebook comments, the X comments, and what's the purple one that I use? The Twitch comments, and it's going to be up on Rumble soon. Support Raelyn in her stand to protect kids. How do people find, and you've raised a pretty good chunk of cash so far, and hopefully we can get to that goal. But what about how they can help by researching? Because that ultimately is where we're going to find out most of the stuff, right? And this is something that you do probably now, like breathing, where you go and you just look around online, you follow the links and go, oh, there's something I haven't seen before. And I'm sure you've got some go-to links for books when you're getting set to do another piece to your those books aren't in my kids' school series, right? Yeah. So where can people... honest, yeah, go ahead.
There is so much information that sometimes I forget about it. And then it'll pop up later. I'm like, oh, crap, right. Somebody will go, oh, but don't forget. And I'm like, oh, my gosh, how could I forget that? I think, yes, people can do research. You can do research on your own, of course. But I think the best thing that I ever did when starting out was reaching out for help, right? Reaching out for, anybody that might know more about this stuff. So you mentioned Christine. She has been a huge help. She has been maybe a little bit behind the scenes on things, but she helps me a lot. So, just with research. But I think
Jen
that
too, I'm sure. Yeah, she does a lot, right?
Leaning on people, just in general, people that are doing this, I think is number one, right? So I'm right here. I can be found on pretty well all the major platforms. Reach out to me, send me a message, and people do. People send me messages and they say, hey, Raelyn, I saw your episode. That's my kid's school, by the way. And they said, I want to know more. So like you said, people turn off the video halfway through because it's just disgusting. And they don't get to the rest of it. So the rest of it is like, here's some resources that you can use to find another giant list of books to look for if you like, because you don't know what to look for. And because like you said, the titles and the covers don't tell the story of what's in it. So here's some resources, And lost my train of thought. That happens a lot lately.
You're talking about resources that people can use to find these books and possibly figure out if they're in their kids. Go ahead.
Yeah, and where to find their catalog, right? So we have the Follett system, which is across the Canada and the U.S.
What's it called again? Say again.
Follett system. So I can give you the link to it. It's gofollett.com. But not every school uses it, or not every division uses it. Some of them have their own, but those are usually found on the website. So you have to kind of maybe dig on your division's website or your school's website to find that link to their system. And if they don't have one, right, you contact them and say, hey, like, I looked online, I don't see anything. You can actually request it, right? So it's a public record. You can do a FIPA request, it's what it's called. And usually, it used to be you went through the FIPA department in, I don't know if it's a branch of Manitoba Education, doesn't matter. You used to go through them, but now you actually go through your division. So you can contact your division and just say, hey, I'm making a FIPA request for this. And yeah, and they have to give it to you. So what else can we do?
Let me ask you.
Right? Let you ask me.
Yeah, let me ask you. We talked a little, I don't want to get into this too deeply, but because you asked me not to, but I want to ask, because we've got a lot of grandparents who watch the show. There's parents, obviously, but there's also grandparents, and they're worried about their grandkids and what they're going to be finding in schools, in their public libraries and whatnot. And they may not know how to speak to their own kids, who are the parents of their grandkids, obviously, about all of this. Do you have any recommendations at all for how to bring that up and to actually tell people what's in there without hammering them in the face? Because I totally understand that people don't want to hear it, and we talked about that before, but I mean, sometimes you have to face facts that this stuff is there. Do you want your kids to see this in school?
Yeah.
Right?
You know what, Shadow? I feel like I don't have an answer for that. I've been trying to wake up a lot of people to this, and it's just, I don't know if they just don't want to be bothered with it, you know, because if you know that there's a risk, right, that your child could come to harm, if you know about it and if you acknowledge it, then you have to act on it. And when you act on it, that's when things get uncomfortable, right? You might get community backlash. People are like, oh, you're a bigot, or you're clutching your pearls, or whatever the heck they say these days. I don't know if I have an answer for you.
Are too many people worried about their own public image? Like if somebody gets called a bigot, do they think, oh my God, I better just shut up then because I don't want that? Is that too prevalent still?
I think so. Absolutely. I think so. I haven't, flies in my house. I haven't, sorry, it's the season for the flies. I haven't been somebody to ever really be worried about what people think of me, right? Like I was bullied all through high school, and I just stuck to being who I was. And so I don't know if I'm just used to it by now, used to being called names, all sorts of names. But yeah, I think people are scared. The public pressure, absolutely, it's public pressure. It's a great tool for controlling people. You would be surprised.
That's what they do.
I think we saw that all through COVID, right? Was people scared? Well, I don't want someone to think I'm a bad person, right? If I don't wear a mask, or I don't get vaccinated, or or if I attend an event and I'm not supposed to, right? Like
grandma killer. You're a grandma killer. Like, what?
I got that one. Yeah.
Definitely. And so, all right, I'm not going to ask that question because it's a little bit too much, but I want to thank you for everything that you've done and that you're going to keep doing. And I know that this lawsuit, personally, in my opinion, it's completely frivolous. That's something that I said, by the way, just in case you're monitoring. That's my opinion. And I believe that you're a coward and you shouldn't be doing what you're doing, but you are. And if you look at the books in your own school, you'll see exactly what we're talking about is completely and totally true, regardless of your own personal reputation. Again, that's coming from me. But you are going to have to defend yourself. And it's sad that it's come to this. So here is, again, the Give, Send, Go for Raelyn. Support Raelyn in her stand to protect kids. And if people don't like the Give, Send, Go, I am open to doing other ways of getting that over. I know there's been some people who said, like, I don't want to do the Give, Send, Go after what happened with the GoFundMe thing. Right. Is there another way? So yeah, reach out to me and we'll make that happen another way. Like an e-transfer through email or something. That's absolutely cool. So people, like, what's the best way to get a hold of you? Is it Instagram? Is it Facebook? Or do you check them all regularly? They've been kind of inundated lately, but Facebook is usually the one that I use, Facebook Messenger. Okay. Raelyn, thank you for coming on tonight. And it's so nice to have you on in person to have this conversation as opposed to just playing a video of you, which I'm going to keep doing because I really support your work, but it's nice to have you on just talking person to person here. It was great being here, and part 12 is coming soon. Is it? When? When's the premiere? Whenever I have time. Homeschooling is starting too, so... Homeschooling 4 kids, my God. All right, well, good luck to you, Raelyn. We'll talk to you again soon. Thank you for coming on tonight. Thanks, Shadow. All right. We've got more for you guys. I'm coming right back. Shadow at Night live stream is brought to you by CanadaNanoSilver.com.
Today we're comparing Crest toothpaste to SilverSeuticals toothpaste. First, we're starting out with Crest. It's a classic, it's an original. It's what I've used most of my life. But that being said, it does have its problems. First off, the consistency is so weird and thick, and I get it's a paste, but it really doesn't spread that well. And I must also say that I'm not in love with the taste. I get toothpaste isn't supposed to taste good, but why shouldn't it? But that being said, it does get the job done. Next, we have SilverSeuticals. They have 3 flavors, but today we're going with Bubbleberry. And already it smells so good. So I'm excited to see what this tastes like. The consistency is also a lot smoother, and I must say it spreads way nicer in your mouth.
This literally tastes like fruit bubblegum.
Yeah, this toothpaste was pretty good. I actually went in for seconds, and it's infused with nano silver, so it helps remineralize your teeth and keep them fresh throughout the day.
100% go with SilverSeuticals.
And here's the results. What's your favorite toothpaste?
Well, that's CanadaNanoSilver.com, CanadaNanoSilver.com. Andrew Wilson is the host of the Crucible podcast. He was on Piers Morgan the other night. They were talking about this whole LGBTQ transgender thing. And man, did he lay it down straight. Watch this.
People are done with the trans thing. They've had enough of it. This whole... they're just kind of regular people like you and me, but happen to dress up like with. No, that's not really what's going on. You've unleashed an entire fleet of mentally ill lunatics on the public, and now we have to deal with the fallout of it. We have to deal with having to deal with these people on a day-to-day basis. A lot of people are sick of it. This guy is just echoing the thing which is in a lot of our minds, which is that, hey, we're kind of tired of these mentally ill lunatics on our streets. We really are.
Ava?
I find that really frightening. I mean, why would you say someone was mentally ill because they feel they were born in the wrong body? I mean, does that give you pleasure or joy to just stamp down on someone's, personhood? What's the intent here?
Do you value truth? Because
I
here's
value
what
truth, yeah.
good. Then here's what's true. What's true is that if you're a man, you can't be a woman, and if you're a woman, you can't be a man. That's what's true.
I don't think it's helpful to get into the.
Hang on. I'll let you talk, but let me finish. Your attempt to gaslight everybody into the opposition of this truth builds resentment. And it's that resentment that you have to deal with. And it's you have done it to yourself. They're just kind of.
Okay, so what he says there is absolutely true. So I want you guys to really pay close attention again. I've run it back. Watch, listen.
Regular people like you and me, but happen to dress up like, no, that's not really what's going on. You've unleashed an entire fleet of mentally ill lunatics on the public, and now we have to into the opposition of this truth builds resentment. And it's that resentment. Woman, you can't be a man. That's what's true.
I don't think it's helpful to get into the.
Hang on. I'll let you talk, but let me finish. Your attempt to gaslight everybody into the opposition of this truth builds resentment. And it's that resentment that you have to deal with. And it's you have done it to yourself. Like most of these things, the left does it to themselves. It's very obvious. People are not going to accept this. The trans agenda has stalled, and it's stalled out the LGBTQ agenda with it, because you're trying to gaslight people into something which is obviously not true.
Okay, so we talked the other night about this whole gender dysphoria thing being a mental illness, or at least that's the way it used to be categorized by the American Psychiatric Association. And then it became a condition, which meant that these people weren't really sick. They just had a condition. They were people who believed that they were born in the wrong body, a man in a woman's body or vice versa. But there have been a lot of studies that associate this condition with other mental illnesses. So it may be the same as somebody with schizophrenia, let's just say, undiagnosed schizophrenia, who is free in society. There are days where they're going to be all right. They're going to be fine. They're going to be normal as they can be. And then there's going to be other days where they're not. And they might get violent. They might lash out over the littlest thing, the smallest thing. And yet our governments and large corporations these past 10 years have affirmed all of this, thus releasing more danger into society. And yeah, we had a trans shooter in Minnesota last week. But this story that I'm about to show you guys, and I'm sure you've already heard about it, and if you haven't, be prepared for an incredible shock, because this is horrific. Comes from Redux. Male who uses she, her pronouns arrested after violent sexual assault on toddler in Ontario. Now, you know, the left-wing corporate media here in Canada did not cover this the way it needed to be covered. 25-year-old man in Ontario has been charged with breaking into a family's home in Welland and sexually assaulting their toddler. Danny Senecal identified himself as using she, her on his Facebook profile and displayed the trans pride flag in his biography. On Sunday, August 31st, just this past weekend, police and paramedics were called to a home near Crowland Avenue and York Street in Welland for a medical assistance call involving a young child. When emergency first responders arrived, they discovered the front door of the home showed signs of being forced open. The child was suffering from serious injuries. Officers secured the scene and canvassed the neighborhood shortly thereafter. Investigators say a witness came forward with surveillance video, and the suspect was quickly identified as Daniel Senecal. Senecal was taken into custody and charged with aggravated sexual assault on a child, assault by choking, breaking and entering a home, and sexual interference with a child. His young female victim has been transported out of region for advanced medical care, but she has been declared to be stable, 3 years old. After interviewing the parents, Niagara police issued a news release describing Senecal as a stranger had broken into the family's home sometime between 10 p.m. and 8:59 a.m. and sexually assaulted their sleeping toddler. There is this Danny Senecal. While police attempted to portray the crime as a stranger attack, the National Post has since reported that several friends of the victim's mother say the man arrested was known to the victim's family and had previous contact with the toddler he assaulted. Locals expressed confusion as to why police described it as a stranger attack when that was not the case. Remember what I told you last night about the police picking and choosing what it is they want you to hear and using the media just that way, holding the media hostage, as a matter of fact, in some cases. If the media reports something the police doesn't like, they'll withhold information from that media source. Another mother in the area told the National Post that Senecal had sexually assaulted her young son in 2021. She said he was arrested, charged, and after 2 years of court hearings was sentenced to 18 months in jail, but was released 6 months early, in early March. While little is known about Senecal's past, a Facebook page has been uncovered showing that he appears to have recently adopted a transgender identity. On the profile, Senecal refers to himself as Danny, and in a short bio note writes, "Finally figured it out," with the gay pride and trans pride flag emojis. Yeah, sure you did. His pronouns on the profile are set to she, her. And his most recent selfie, taken in March, shows that he had clean-shaven his beard and grown his hair out. While it's unclear when Senecal first began to identify as transgender, under the current laws in Ontario, he's allowed to request housing and accommodations on the basis of his self-declared gender identity. You see, in Ontario, transgender inmates are generally housed according to their self-declared gender preferences, both in federal and provincial facilities, unless officials determine that serious safety or health concerns make it impossible. This man sexually molested, harmed, assaulted a 3-year-old toddler, a girl. She may never have children, by the way. I'm not going to get too graphic as to what her injuries were, but the Federal Correctional Service of Canada formalized this policy in 2017, reinforced it in 2022 with Commissioner's Directive 100, which requires placement based on gender identity or expression by default. Ontario's provincial system adopted a similar policy in 2015, instructing that inmates be placed according to their gender identity or housing preference, with exceptions only if authorities can prove compelling reasons. The only province in Quebec that has moved to defy this nationwide procedural consensus is Quebec, which recently adopted new rules surrounding the housing of transgender inmates. In June, Quebec's Public Security Minister Francois Bonnardel announced the province would now require transgender inmates in provincial prisons to be housed based on their anatomical sex at birth rather than on their self-identified gender. The announcement came after a high-profile trial involving a trans-identified male who had murdered his entire family. Mohammed Al-Balouz began to identify as a woman after being arrested, was briefly placed in a women's facility during a trial, since been moved to a men's prison. But the problem with Quebec, well, I mean, they can go ahead and do that. It's great, sure. Men should go to men's prisons, women should go to women's prisons, but the Quebec College of Physicians is doubling down now in favor of euthanasia for babies with disabilities. This story came out just yesterday on catholicvote.org. Again, the left-wing corporate media will never show you this. The Quebec College of Physicians recently told the Daily Mail that it still regards euthanasia as an appropriate treatment for infants with disabilities and severe medical syndromes, confirming that the physicians would be in support if Canada were to steer its euthanasia program down this dark path. This proposal was initially brought up in 2022 by Louis Roy, or Roy, who spoke on behalf of the college to the Special Joint Committee on Medical Assistance in Dying, according to Right to Life News. The Daily Mail reported August 25th that in 2022, RAW proposed euthanasia for infants up to 1 year old who were born with severe deformations, very grave and severe medical syndromes, whose life expectancy and level of suffering are such that it would make sense to ensure that they do not suffer. Quebec College of Physicians confirmed to the Daily Mail last month that they still hold that position. Tonight on the extension, you are going to see Climate Trails, the movie. I went to the pocket on this one. This is not something that you can find anywhere online without actually paying for it. I chose to do that. Haven't talked too much about chemtrails, climate trails at all in the past few months because we've been occupied with other things. But I saw this movie had come out maybe a week to 10 days ago, and I thought, I thought maybe you guys would like to see it. And so we're going to show it tonight on the extension for all access pass holders at shadowdavis.com. Please, if you are so inclined and you're able to, help Raelyn Fox in her legal battle. Without going into too much detail, she is being sued by an individual within the Manitoba education system. These people don't have any shame, in my personal opinion, and they need to understand that they have to do the right thing. I urge you all to look in the mirror, take a long look, and then do the right thing. I love you all, and I appreciate you all, and I will talk to you again tomorrow night at 8 o'clock Central for another Shadow at Night live stream. All access Nighthawks, I'll see you in 2 minutes on shadowdavis.com. We'll be right back after this.